Hey guys, Ryan here, and in today's video I'm going to explain 3 ways you can almost instantly improve your recoil control, and hopefully by the end of this video you're going to feel like you're a better aimer overall. Let's begin with the most important tip in this entire video, and that's please learn recoil patterns, guys. If you don't understand what I mean, pay attention to what I'm about to show you in the background. For a gun like the Cast-Off 7.62, when I shoot it at a wall, it's going to have a very specific recoil pattern. Now, if you were to shoot a gun at a wall over and over, you'd notice there's going to be some randomness and some variance in the recoil pattern. But for the Cast-Off 7.62, almost every single time you shoot it, it's going to go up and to the right. Now, it's going to shake a little bit to the left, but almost every single time it's going to go up and to the right. And if you learn to counteract this on your joystick or your mouse, you can get so much better recoil control, it's hard to put into words. Now, this isn't going to make it just super easy and a no recoil, blah, 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 blah. But what it's going to allow you to do is understand that if you actually learn the proper way to input your inputs on the joystick or the mouse, you can counteract so much of recoil by just knowing the patterns and the directions you need to pull. Now, you're probably saying, Ryan, do I have to seriously learn this for every gun? And no, you don't. I promise that's not what you have to do. But what you should do is, if you want to learn a gun or if you picked up a new gun, is make sure you just look at the recoil pattern, get a general feel for the way it works, and then just go into a private match like this and just try and get it to be quote unquote no recoil. Find a place on the wall and try and get it as steady as possible. I would also just recommend to shoot the wall a couple times and then just mirror what you see when you shoot. For this Cast-Off 7.62, as I said, it almost always goes up and to the right. So what do? Is I pull down and to the left on my joystick or the mouse, and that's what makes it have this low recoil type effect. Same thing with the MP5. When I use this MP5 and the way I have it built, it has a ton of recoil instantly. So the very second I shoot it, I'm almost immediately pulling down on my joystick by a good bit to counteract the recoil. Now, it's not as easy as I just said, because it really does take a lot of practice. You have to get used to this. You have to understand the way recoil works and have that muscle memory. But this is going to help you instantly actually get better at potentially controlling recoil. And it also leads into my second point, that if you learn to strafe, you'll also just have better recoil control. In Warzone and Call of Duty in general, there's 2 types of recoil control you need to learn. And the first is vertical recoil control, and that's what my first tip kind of covers. And the second is horizontal recoil control. And this is something that you really want to address in your gun builds, but you also need to focus on by strafing on controller to activate rotational aim assist and just to counteract horizontal recoil. Now, the reason for this is because horizontal recoil is a pain to control for a controller, for mouse and keyboard, but it's honestly worse for mouse and keyboard. When you have to pull down on your joystick or the mouse, but then also move it side to side and it shakes from left to right and yada, 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 well, that's just actually very difficult to counter in reality. And while you can have good recoil control, and as you get better and better, you can learn it, you have to be aware that this is something that's going to cause you to lose a ton of gunfights if you don't counteract it by just strafing yourself. Now, once again, unfortunately for my mouse and keyboard viewers, this isn't going to help as much as it will for controller players. When you strafe in gunfights in Call of Duty with the controller, it activates rotational aim assist, and this is the type of aim assist you want to help counteract horizontal recoil control. And this is where I kind of think it's a little unfair and something that really needs to be talked about for the balance of the game. But as a controller player, you're going to have a much easier time counteracting this type of recoil control. And all you have to do on controller is simply just move that left stick a little bit in gunfights. It sounds super simple, and it is super simple. And that's something I wish a lot more people knew. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about here are going to be focusing on your settings and your gun builds. Now, it's not the biggest difference when you actually compare sensitivities, but the higher sensitivity you have on mouse and keyboard and controller, usually the less you have to pull down to control recoil, and it makes it a little easier to actually control recoil. However, this isn't necessarily the best advice in practice, because high sensitivity comes with a whole bunch of different issues, and usually it's not that big of a deal. I will say, if you use dynamic and a low sensitivity, you are going to struggle to pull down enough to get good recoil control if you're using too low of a sensitivity. Now, as I said before, it's not a problem for 90% of people, but I will say it could be something that is negatively affecting your recoil control game. But this is also why I really recommend to look at your build and how you're building your guns and how to optimize it for your own personal skill level. So for me, I usually can get away with having a little bit more recoil on my guns than most people, and this is because I have a ton of hours and a ton of practice aiming. But for a lot of people, if you can focus on eliminating as much horizontal recoil as possible, you're going to be so much better off. It's hard to put into words. If you can only make it so you really just have to pull down to get a gun that has almost no recoil, then you're going to have made your own life so much easier, it's hard to even describe. Now, I really can't stress enough, guys, a lot of building a gun really is just going to be dependent on the individual attachments for that gun. It's going to be dependent on so many things, so it's kind of a shame that there's not some great universal builds that everyone can use that's going to work perfectly for them. But it is worth to spend some time, and I'd heavily recommend True Game Data or sim.gg, but preferably True Game Data, to look at the stats, get a good idea of what does what, because these attachments are so confusing and different ones work differently with different guns, and if you tune it, it really changes things, and there's so much to it where I really just can't stress, learn to build your own guns and find your own recoil control type build, because that's going to be the best thing for you as an individual. Anyways, guys, this has been my video on recoil control. I'm very sick right now. I'm very tired. I'm not feeling too good mentally, but I wanted to get this video out because I had a couple comments talking about this on my last video, and I realized I don't know why I haven't made a video on this already. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a good day. Thank you for all the comments and support. I hope this video helped you out. It's been Ryan. Peace.